What is up guys, I hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're covering r/IDoWorkHereLady. If you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe, that like button and maybe that notification bell. And with that being said, let's get started. Our first story is from Gryfame. I've been thrown out of my office by a temp worker. We're two art directors managing a big client, so when one is sick or away, there's always one in the office. We have an office which is separated from the rest of the team, as we're doing lots of documents that are under NDA. I usually never meet my clients, and when I do, it's in our building, so I dress casually instead of other co-workers. I'm also looking way younger than I am. My co-worker is quite the total opposite, nicely dressed with a big beard, but while I'm a few years younger than him, we still have the same exact job. I've been working from home on a big project for the last days. The other AD is leaving the country, so I'm needed back at the office in order to supervise the work of some of the designers. When I come into the office, the first thing I do is head to the coffee machine to have some coffee and discuss with some of my colleagues. They tell me that the CEO and COO are both out of the office for the rest of the week, so I'm basically the one in charge of my team. After that, I go to my desk as usual, and there are two persons I've never met, which are one freelance we hired because of the workflow, and another dude which is replacing my other designer as he's sick. Before I could say hi or anything, this dude gets up quickly. The dude says, "What are you doing here? We're doing confidential work. You're not supposed to see that." I say, "Hi, and then D gets in my way. "You should leave now." "But get out!" I stop there and get out, trying to hide my smile as I walk out of our office. I stumble upon my designer, which comes back from her lunch break. I quickly tell her what happened, and she laughed at me. I asked her not to tell anything to this dude. I'm having a second coffee, thinking about what I would do now. Update 1, I told my client what happened. There's a meeting with my whole team, and some other people happen in a few hours, and I'm part of it, as we're going to discuss various projects. Coffee shop owner is a nice dude. I had a free coffee when I told him what happened. Update 2, I was able to go into the meeting room earlier as planned. My client is still laughing at me about what happened. Some of my colleagues came, and one of them told me she knew what had happened, because my designer told her. She was impatient to see how it would go. Finally my design team is there. My designer has the biggest smile ever as she presents the client the two new persons. The guy makes a weird face when he spots me, and I see him becoming white as fuck when my designer introduced me to the other freelancer and him. The other one, which was there this morning when he threw me out my office, looks shocked. The dude is trying to slightly hide behind my designer. She's way shorter than him. It's difficult to stay serious, so I quickly start the meeting once I can make a sentence without bursting in laughter. The meeting goes as it should, and the dude is not talking much. I can't make eye contact with him. I've never seen someone as embarrassed as him. He looked really unsure and stressed when he has to talk about the projects he was working on. I try my best to have him interact, but he seems too ashamed to talk with me. He's saved by my designer answering sometimes instead of him. I wish he was a bit less nice person, but I won't force him too much. He's slowly merging in his chair and looks quite red now. At the end of the meeting, I had to send him back to work and stay a bit more with my client to discuss. He was the first one to get out. Unfortunately, I could not see him after the meeting, but he'll be back tomorrow morning. I have big expectations when we'll meet again. I'll make sure to wear the same hoodie as today. Update 3, this will be my login till he arrives. ETA 1 hour. I'm the only one of my team in the office. I'm impatient to see how it goes. ETA 30 minutes. I noticed someone left a really nice pen on my desk. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's a gift from the one who stole all the other pens I had. ETA 25 minutes. I go to make myself a second coffee. The cleaning lady recognises me. Maybe one day I'll know her name, and she'll know mine. ETA 20 minutes. The cleaning lady came to say goodbye. I'm alone in the office. I'm getting impatient. ETA 15 minutes. I make a third coffee. I think it's replaced my blood now. I feel a bit anxious, just like before a first date or meeting a new potential client. ETA 10 minutes. One of my colleagues finally arrives. He heard the story. He's impatient as well. He's sitting in my office waiting for him to come. ETA 5 minutes, I'm stressed, but yesterday was fun. I wonder how today will go. ETA 0 minutes, my designer is here. She's quite happy that the dude didn't arrive before her. ETA plus 5 minutes, I'm starting to get a bit anxious. Will he come? ETA 10, he's finally here. He apologised to me and said he's feeling embarrassed and quite ashamed by how he behaved yesterday. Apparently I was not looking like the idea he had of me, based on what people said about me. He also said he was quite stressed, as my colleague wasn't here and he was working on a confidential document. For his defence, it was quite an important one. I can live with someone too dedicated to confidentiality. He brought me some croissants as an apology gift. I think I like him. I still chuckle. He seemed quite a nice guy after all. He apologised in person and in public. I respect that. Maybe people can buy my trust with food. I think this is the end of the story. You can't blame the guy though. Even if he's like a temp worker, he's taken his job seriously with confidentiality and trying to guard your documents. You can't really blame that. I mean, he shouldn't have shut you down and should have listened to you about who you were to begin with, but his heart was in the right place. What do you guys make of that story? I think it's a pretty wholesome story in the end. The next story is from RDE42. I'm not hallucinating my treatment. I think and hope this fits here as it relates to someone else, although I was involved and they did work there. Some years ago, I had a short outpatient procedure which caused me to have a serious infection. I was rushed back to hospital by ambulance and spent a total of 10 days there with something verging on sepsis. I spent the first 24 hours in a clinical decision unit, not the nicest of places, but I was running a serious temperature and didn't notice much. Rules and targets meant that within 24 hours I had to be discharged or moved to a ward. After 23.5 hours I was on a ward. It was late evening. I was fixed up with a cannula and a drip, antibiotics which in the end didn't work, and I settled down to sleep. I was reasonably comfortable and although ill, was feeling a bit more normal. I was woken up about 3 AM by the patient in the next bed having an incident which I will gloss over for reasons of delicacy. I looked around to find a large bloodstain on my sheets. In my rather restless sleep, I'd ripped out my cannula. I pressed the call button. A very nice young guy arrived. The nursing station was in sight from my bed and there was a group of 4 or 5 people there, including the guy who came over, all dressed in black trousers and high-neck black tunics. In addition to 2 nurses who I recognised from earlier. He was very efficient and painlessly reinserted the cannula and cleaned me up. I went back to sleep. He didn't change a sheet but covered it up to save major disturbance at that time of night. Next morning after breakfast, 2 nurses came round to change sheets for everyone. Mine were a mess, so I explained what happened. They looked very wary and said there were no male nurses on the ward. I explained that the guy was in a black jacket. They looked at me strangely and said there were no workers in black uniforms. I insisted that I had been treated by a person I had described, but they wouldn't have it. Eventually, in sweet, calming voices, they started to agree with everything I said. Obviously they were humouring me. They went on with their work. A bit later, I saw them discussing something with a charge nurse, with the occasional glance in my direction. I was now getting worried and beginning to doubt myself. Then one of them came back over, beaming uncomfortably. I thought, this is it. She then, rather hesitantly, explained that a party of student doctors had been touring night shifts the previous night. Unknown to her or a colleague, they had a new design of uniform, in black. I was sane after all, and he did work there. You'd kind of think, like, all the staff would know about that and not have to find it out from another colleague. You'd have thought that they know students are around and their uniforms have changed. Surely that's something that's got to go around to all staff. Otherwise, everyone's going to think there's just random people wandering around a hospital. I mean, come on. What do you guys make of that story? The next story is from Mystic Wolf Shadows. Substitute Power tries to get security to take me off the playground. This happened to me about 2 years ago. I was working as a AmeriCorps member, doing tutor/mentor stuff, and I often led games outside with the K3 kids during recess. Most days I'd wear one of those bright yellow vests with school zone on the back, but since my vest had gotten torn in half, it's a long story, I went out without it. I hadn't thought it was a big deal since all the kids knew me, and so did all the paras. Well, it turns out that one of the paras had to leave early for some reason, and she had a sub come in. The sub hadn't been to our school before, so she didn't know me, and just saw a short and pudgy girl, I was 18 at the time, coming through the gate and over to a big group of kids. Instantly, all the kids started running, since they knew our game today was sort of a scavenger hunt that would then turn into a capture the flag once they found all the little tags. While the group was off, I went to go and talk to one of the smaller kids, sitting on the bench nearby. She'd been told by some of the boys she couldn't play because she was too small and a girl. I was knelt down so we were on eye level and holding her hands to give her encouragement. This is when the sub comes over. The sub says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I had thought she was yelling at a kid, so I hadn't paid much attention to her. I just kept talking to the girl I was giving encouragement to. I gave her a hug since she wanted one and got up. That's when the sub came over and grabbed me by my arm. "I'm talking to you, what are you doing here? This is a closed campus, visitors aren't allowed." Me, being an idiot and more focused on the actual rules than a mix-up. "Actually, While it's a closed campus, visitors are allowed, they just need a proper ID and a visitor's pass. Sub thinking I'm talking back, and you clearly don't have either before I call security. Me, still oblivious to what's going on. Why would you need to call security? Why should I leave? And can you let go? You're hurting my arm. Sub pulling on a borrowed radio. I'll call security. I was about to go into full-blown panic when one of the other parrots came running over. He was a bigger guy and looked like he was about to ram into the sub, stopping just short. We'll call him Mr. S. Sub said, "Oh, Mr. S, I found this teen sneaking onto our campus and scaring the kids. Please call security." Mr. S confused. "What are you talking about? She's one of our staff members." "No, she came from outside the gate and she's not wearing a vest. Plus, the kids were all running from her." Me pulling my arm out of her grip. "I came around from dropping off public library books across the street during my break, and they ran because they know our game starts as soon as I'm outside." The sub was pretty surprised, and Mr. S ended up escorting her back inside. I don't remember exactly what happened to her, but I didn't see her again after that. Kinda glad though. She left a pretty nasty bruise on my arm. Kind of again, I'm like on this story, you knew she'd have been wearing a vest, and that person was meant to be protecting children. You kind of understand, you know? But she should have just spoke to you clearly at first, and you shouldn't have been so confused about the whole matter. Should have explained your situation first. I'm kind of in two minds about that one. What do you think about that story? Who was in the right on there? I mean, there's no way she should have grabbed her arm and squeezed it like she did, but at the same time, she was trying to protect the kids. Let me know your thoughts on that story in the comments below. Would love to hear it. As always, guys, a massive thank you for being here. Your time dedicated to this channel is just absolutely amazing. It blows my mind every time I see comments and the same names. It's just absolutely crazy. Thank you so much. If you do enjoy the content, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell. And I will see you in the next one. Much love, guys.